Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
There is a new movie. Movies do a lot for us. Movies are essential, I think. And there's a new documentary. Of course, it's not Dinesh D'Souza's, which claims that the Nazi platform is the exact same platform as the Democratic National Committee's platform, which is just such a lie. And, of course, Dinesh D'Souza is a pardoned campaign finance violator, pardoned by Trump Sr. and Jr. attends this movie. This is not that. This is a documentary that was made by Jack Bryan. It's called Active Measures, and it deals with the war crime of a foreign adversary taking active measures in the United States in order to affect an election. Here's a trailer from the new documentary.
Putin has worked to undermine democracies across the globe.
He made his way up through the KGB.
He learned how to maneuver politically.
The Russian mafia is an adjunct of the Russian government.
And they help maintain Mr. Putin's power.
To the point where Putin may well be the wealthiest man on the face of the planet. The Russians have a particular type of mark. They go after somebody who has business resources, shady morals, and political connections or aspirations. I've just described Donald Trump.
Putin realizes that if we're divided as a nation, we can't protect ourselves from threats within and without.
And what you have is probably the biggest intelligence breach in the history of the world.
So joining me now is Jack Bryan, the director, producer, and writer of Active Measures, which comes out August 31st. Jack, thanks so much for being with us. Obviously, the Russia story, to an extent, has dominated the headlines for the last 18 months. So what new or different did you look to find out?
Well, I think what we can sort of contribute to the conversation largely is the role of the Russian mafia in this, and particularly the role of one man who seems to be both connected to Putin and to a lot of the money that is going into the Trump organization, as well as a lot of the money that went into Manafort for years. That man's Simeon Mogilevich, who largely runs the Ukraine-Russia gas trade. And he is the money laundering kingpin. He's been doing it since the 80s. He's worth about $10 billion, lives openly in Russia. He was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for a while. And his lawyer is actually William Sessions, the former director of the FBI.
Oh, my God.
And he's a very powerful guy, and a lot of the Russian money that has flowed out of Russia and into America comes through him.
I want to bring up Donald Trump, businessman Donald Trump's alleged connections to the Russian mob in just a second there. But I do note, as I watched that trailer, I saw Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
I saw John McCain. I saw Evan McMullin. I saw Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse. A lot of people who were explicitly political foes of President Trump.
Sure.
Is this sort of one-sided? Is this meant to be a hit job on the president?
Well, I mean, I would say it's a different perspective in the sense of we know Donald Trump's side of the story is no collusion. And so we wanted to fill in the gaps of what the other side of it is. But we do also have James Woolsey, who is a senior foreign policy advisor to him and was actually offered the job of CIA director until, according to him in our film, they asked him to basically kidnap a man in Pennsylvania, and he decided it was illegal and also didn't want to report through Flynn to the White House. We also talked to Daniel Freed, who was the U.S. sanctions coordinator, and he left when he felt that Trump was trying to lift sanctions on Russia. And so there were people that were within the organization but wanted to speak out now.
So obviously the only person that does any talking about Russia, because Mueller protects his investigation and doesn't leak. We haven't had any leaks. The only thing we know about Mueller's investigation are the court filings, which everybody, reads when they are delivered to the court. The only thing that people know is things like Sam Nunberg going on TV, Michael Cohen's statements now, the James Woolsey, that he left. that Michael Flynn pled guilty, that Rick Gates pled guilty, that Papadopoulos pled guilty. We know about the indictments of 13 Russian businesses. We know about the troll farm that was run, that is still being run, that is still up and running in St. Petersburg. That's run by Putin's chef. Okay, who's a billionaire. Now, I don't know where, all these people in Russia have money for, luxury, catering to the point where the caterer becomes a billionaire. But obviously, it's all dirty money. We have articles by Wayne Barrett, who investigated for the Village Voice. We have articles by Craig Unger, who investigated for the New Republic. We have lots of lawyers out there saying that this lie, that collusion is not a crime, is actually 4 crimes. And referred to as collusion, but it's really a conspiracy, and not just a conspiracy to defraud the United States, but a conspiracy to protect, the flow of money that's ongoing. It's a conspiracy to lie under oath. It's a conspiracy to taint the jury pool with the tweeting. It's a conspiracy to just lie. I mean, just to lie to protect and cover up everything that you've done. It's ever-changing stories. It's moving goalposts.
I want to get to the pretty remarkable shifting of explanations.
Really?
About this meeting. The president denying again that he knew about this meeting. When he first talked about this meeting, he denied having anything to do with statements describing the meeting in a misleading way as primarily about adoptions. Now it's shifted. Now the president's saying, wait, this was a meeting to get information from our opponents, totally illegal. So that's one concession right there. And I do have to ask you about this because I haven't had you on the program for quite a while. And last July, a year ago, when I asked you if the president had anything to do with putting out a statement about this meeting at Trump's Tower, you said he wasn't involved in any way at all. Here's what you said.
The president didn't sign off on anything. He was coming back from the G20. The statement that was released on Saturday was released by Donald Trump Jr., and I'm sure in consultation with his lawyers. The president wasn't involved in that.
That's not
true. You said the president wasn't involved in any way at all. Later, Sarah Sanders changed that. She said, oh, yeah, the president weighed in but didn't dictate anything. And then in January of this year, the president's legal team, including you, sent a memo to Robert Mueller saying this: you have received all of the notes, communications, and testimony indicating that the president did dictate a short but accurate response to the New York Times article on behalf of his son. So why did you deny President Trump's involvement? When did you learn that the denial wasn't true?
Well, let me tell you 2 things on that one. Number one, as you know, George, I was in the case at that point, a couple of weeks, and there was a lot of information that was gathering. And as my colleague Rudy Giuliani said, I had bad information at that time. I made a mistake in my statement. I've talked about that before. That happens when you have cases like this. As far as when did we correct it, the important part is the information that we've shared with the Office of Special Counsel. I'm not going to get into the details, but we were very clear as to the situation involving that trip and the statements that were made to the New York Times. So I think it's very important to point out that in a situation like this, you have, over time, facts develop. That's what investigations do.
No, facts don't develop. Facts are facts, and a fact about a meeting that happened in 2016, over 2 years ago, didn't evolve. It was what it was, and either you were lied to by Junior and Senior and other people that were in that meeting, like Manafort and Gates, right? And Michael Cohen, who said Trump knew, that his son Bannon, who said there's no question in his mind, there's zero chance, this is what Steve Bannon said, zero chance that Donald Trump Jr. didn't bring the meeting to Donald Trump's attention. We played clips last week of Barbara Reyes, who was an executive in the Trump organization, and she said there is no way that Jr. didn't tell his dad that the Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton and that they were, he was so excited about what they were going to get that he didn't, there's no chance he didn't tell his father. There's no chance he didn't run upstairs. The fact that the Trump campaign manager, Manafort, was in all these meetings means that Trump, the candidate, knew. Facts do not evolve. And, Jay Sekulow, if your explanation is that facts from a meeting that happened 2 years ago evolve, why go on television and put out false facts if you, as the lawyer, have a client who you know is being dishonest with you because the meeting was arranged on June 6th. Then on June 7th, your client was on the TV saying he was going to have dirt on Hillary Clinton come after the weekend because the meeting was 2 days later. Now, why would you go on TV with all that evidence if you're such a smart lawyer and then say a lie? Why would you get caught up in the lying? And who lied to you? Did Junior lie to you? Did Manafort lie to you? Did Rick Gates lie to you? Did Flynn lie to you? Did Kushner lie to you? Because they were all in this meeting. Did they all lie to you? Did you not believe your own eyes and ears when Trump was on the TV the day after the emails came out? About if you say, from Emin Agaralar that said, hey, the Russian government really does support your dad and we want to send you Natalia Veselnitskaya. She's going to be in New York. She's working on the Prevezon case, which was all about money laundering. Money laundering of money taken from Bill Browder and laundered through a company called Prevezon into New York real estate, for God's sake. I mean, honest to God, people. He's sitting there telling you, oh, facts evolve. Rudy Giuliani's sitting on the TV going, our recollection keeps changing. What? How stupid do you have to be to believe anything except that this president is compromised? This president owes his life and his money to the Russian mafia. This president is scared of Vladimir Putin. This president is scared for his son's freedom. This president knows that he was a part of a money laundering operation and has been for 30 years. This president knows his sons are on record boasting as far back as 2008 that most of their assets were coming from Russia. He knows that he sold apartments in Trump Tower as early as 1984 to anonymous buyers. 58 stories of apartments sold to Russian mobsters anonymously. It was the only building in New York that accepted anonymous buyers. And we're talking about 30 years ago. And ongoing into the Trump Soho project, ongoing into Sunny Isles, Florida, which is right here in Fort Lauderdale, the house in Palm Beach that he sold to a Russian oligarch. And he knows that he was bragging about in 2013, the Miss Universe pageant, how all the oligarchs came to see him. Some of those oligarchs were actually under investigation by our government, and we couldn't find them, except they showed up at the Miss Universe pageant. Seriously, this is just unbelievable. The United States government since the 80s and 90s have seen a clear pattern of dirty money being laundered by Russians into high-end real estate in New York, in Canada, actually, there's a Trump Tower, in Sunny Isles, Florida. For 30 years they've seen it. You have our best investigative journalists doing this. You have public records you could look at. This man was an easy mark. You have our own intelligence community. You have Clint Watts saying that the president was helping spread the propaganda under oath to the Senate Intelligence Committee. You have Donald Trump Jr. lying under oath to the House Intelligence Committee. You have the Republicans in the House refusing to, get records or to follow up on some of the false testimony they received from people like Roger Stone, from people like Junior, from people like Rick Gates. They didn't subpoena anybody. They let them lie to them. Devin Nunes is compromised, obviously. And anybody who took money from the NRA, I don't know if you saw the articles over the weekend about how the NRA suddenly is going broke. They don't have any money. They may have to pull down NRA TV. They're going to have to stop, with their mailings, and they don't have any money. They're all going broke over there. I mean, this is so sick and sad. The Russians, obviously, through Maria Butina and this guy, Alexander Torshin, who's also under investigation for money laundering. Everyone's a money launderer. But Maria Butina, she's got every single freaking Republican, every member of the NRA going to Russia to visit Russian private gun manufacturers. to the point where the leadership in the NRA mysteriously changes overnight. Usually they have, an order of succession where you're the vice president for a while, and when the president resigns, the vice president becomes the president. No, all of a sudden they reach into Oliver North. What is Oliver North known for? Money laundering. What money did Oliver North launder? We sold tow missiles to the Iranians, got money for that. He laundered it through Saudi Arabia into Central America to do an illegal civil war that Congress specifically prohibited by voting on it. And it didn't stop Oliver North. And now he's the president of the NRA, a guy who's expert in covering up money laundering, who actually admitted that he did it under oath and then was pardoned, okay? This is so... Well, actually, what happened was his conviction was overturned because he was given immunity. This is a sick and sad party. This Republican Party is so dirty, and it's all about money for them, and they don't care where they get it from. And every one of these GOP members who covers up for Donald Trump and what he's done, and his sons, and Oliver North, all these years ago, from the 80s to today, they are complicit. And that is why they are so quiet. And hopefully after the election, when they're not scared anymore of the freaks who have been fed a steady diet of racism and ugliness in order to counter the fact that President Trump is a dirty, dirty Russian agent, will start speaking up after they lose a midterm election and they go, okay, we need to say something. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.